Okay, so the next thing is we're going to look at how to use this ChatGPT for research and development. Okay, so especially in paper writing and generally how to use this AI tool to enhance our write-up, okay, our articles, our journals. Before you submit, you can kind of do a lot of things with it to polish your paper. Okay, so there are so many things you can do and can bring in different ideas, different perspectives using this very ChatGPT. So let's get started with topic selection. So this ChatGPT is quite powerful that from a range of data, from a given text that you had from a paper, it can easily give you suggestions of topic that paper could be from. Let's take a look at this paper. Okay, structural master plan of flood mitigation measures. You can see it's a paper on flood mitigation, and I just copied some part of it. Okay, some very small part of the abstract, and I want ChatGPT to give me a suggestion of topics, of titles that relate to this. Can you suggest titles for the abstract? I just passed the abstract, just paste it, enter, and let's wait and see. You see, it is giving us the first suggestion: reducing flood damage through optimal mitigation planning, and that's correct. Flood mitigation master plan, balancing construction costs and damage reduction in days in Carbon River Basin, and that's very correct. The impact of mitigation alternatives on flood risk management, that's very correct. So you see it paraphrasing and rephrasing based on the content of the abstract that we have, and it's giving us some excellent suggestions. And you can see you have up to 8 suggested topics. Okay, so you can work on any of them. For example, you can take the first one and just ask ChatGPT to give you content on that first one. So you can just go ahead and say, can you give me an outline from the first option? And you'll be surprised what, sure, here is an outline based on the first title: reducing flood damage through optimal mitigation planning, a case study of Southwest Iran. And you can see the introduction, the literature review. You can see this is just an overview, the methodology and thereabout, and discussion of study area, identification of mitigation alternatives, economic evaluation of mitigation alternatives, results analysis, conclusion. You can see it gives you everything you need as an outline into this, including the references, list of sources used in the study. That's giving you a general overview and outline of what you need. These are skeletal parts, and it's now left for you to go back and flesh it up as you move on. So this one is aspect of ChatGPT, suggesting a topic and writing an outline. Let's take a look at what it can do further in terms of research and development. So you can come to any section of the paper. Okay, you can choose on any section, or maybe you can select any sentence. For example, we can select this up to this point, and we can just select, we can paste it here and say, can you improve this write-up? Can you improve this? Okay, so we'll paste this and you'll be surprised. Sure, here's an improved version. Okay, so you can see quantification of risk costs is a critical aspect of the analysis. And then you can see it's giving you details in a very summarized way, in a very professional way. So you can just follow through. You can see the writing, and it's nearly not too long and not too short. It's nearly average. So you can see the write-up, and it's quickly everything. It's captured most of the things that we want. So if you want, also you can see, can you explain this to a 12-year-old? Paraphrase it to a 12-year-old. Can we make it simpler so someone who is 12 years to understand what we're talking about, who is 12 years? And you will see, it's going to paraphrase this and it's going to summarize it, make it simple for someone who is 12 years old. Sure, now it starts writing. There is a simpler version. Okay, so you can see, when we talk about the risk of floods, it's important to think about the costs that come with it. Yeah, I think this is very simple, and the language is simple, and it's pretty much simplified. Your costs can be broken down into 2 parts, and you can see it's making it simpler. Things we can see and touch, like damage to our homes and businesses, and probably things that cannot be seen, that are harder to see, like how the flood might make us feel. Okay, that's our feelings and thereabout. So we're able to study this, or to think about it and how to do. So I think it is thinking harder to make it simpler, and I think it's getting it right. That's the idea. Yeah. So this is one way. You can see it's making it. You can see it's done perfect. We need to think about both types of costs so that we can make the best plan to help protect against floods. So this is the idea. to be able to bring in something and ask it to improve, and ask it to possibly even correct the sentence or to paraphrase it or thereabout. So you can say, based on this topic, based on the discussions we had, I can ask it, can you suggest 3 areas, 3 directions that we can follow for future studies? Let's say, can we suggest 3 directions for future studies? So let's see what it will say. Sure. Here are 3 potential directions for future studies. Integration of advanced technology, future of studies to explore integration of advanced technology such as remote sensing in flood mitigation planning to provide more accurate and up-to-date information for decision making. And this is completely perfect. Incorporating GIS into flood mitigation planning, it should make a lot of sense. Multi-criteria decision making. Research could investigate the use of multi-criteria decision making methods in evaluating and selecting the most appropriate flood mitigation alternatives. And this is also fantastic. You can look at the long-term sustainability. The future studies could explain the long-term sustainability of flood mitigation resources and their effectiveness in reducing flood risks over time. So this is very, very clear and straight to the point. Based on these conversations that we've been having through this prompt, it gives us 3 good future recommendations. We can ask it to tell us something about, maybe to generate something like, based on the conversations that we had, based on what you can see, how can we expose this research outside to make it, maybe can you generate 3 tweets that we can put on our social media to tell people about this research? So can you suggest 3 tweets for this research? So let's see what it will say. Here are 3 tweets summarizing the research. New study shows how optimal flood mitigation planning can reduce damages in southwest Iran. Learn more about balancing construction costs and expected values. I think this is pretty much interesting, and it has even included some hashtags. You can see it has included some hashtags which are very, very useful. It can be very useful in terms of SEO or thereabout. You can see flood risk and economic evaluation, hashtag intangible costs. You can see intangible costs. You can see very, very nice suggestions for tweets. Okay, so you can tweet this and tell people about this research, and it has summarized it in a very friendly and nice way. So to me, the ChatGPT can be very, very effective, especially maybe based on this. You can ask it, can you suggest some research questions? Very, very friendly. It can give you an idea into how to be very, very specific to bring it your own research questions. So let's ask it this question. Can you suggest some research questions based on this? Let's hear from this wonderful AI tool. Sure, here are some potential research questions based on the described research topic above. What is the optimal flood mitigation master plan for this town? Yeah, this is nice. How does the economic evaluation of the different flood mitigation alternatives give impact the selection of the optimal plan? Okay, how does this risk analysis determine the size of the selected mitigation alternatives in this location? What are the tangible and intangible costs of flood events in this location? Okay, so I think these are very, very thought-provoking questions that you can use to kickstart your research questions, and even to generate hypotheses. You can generate hypotheses from these to help you in your research as well. Let's ask it this question. Can you generate hypotheses based on the research questions? And you will be amazed. Sure, here are some hypotheses based on the research question. The optimal flood mitigation master plan for these areas in southwest Iran will involve a trade-off between construction costs and the expected value of the damage reduction. The economic evaluation of this will play a significant role in the selection of the optimal plan. So you can see it is giving us the detail of the hypothesis, which you can use to generate or to develop your own study plan or the methods to conduct your research. So we can go ahead and ask it, can you tell us about some methods in the data collection of this? Can you list some methods for data collection in this research? Can you suggest some methods? So let's see, right? Sure, here are some methods for data collection. Number 1 is surveys. You can see how we are developing the paper, and it's helping us to kind of carry out the research effectively. Surveys, you can see conducting surveys, remote sensing, using remote sensing techniques, and then we have geographic information systems. We can use GIS, and then we have historical records, reviewing historical records such as flood reports, insurance claims, weather data, and to gather information on the past flood events and their impacts. Okay, structural interviews, focus groups, literature review, cost-benefit analysis. You have a number of them. So this is superb and it's exceptional. It can help you to kickstart an idea into what you want to do in this particular research. You can see we just picked a random topic, a random abstract, and it's helping us to develop the topic further, to make it wider and to get us to what exactly we want to cover. I think this is very, very nice and interesting, and we can dig further to do many more things. So you can ask different questions depending on the area of your research or the niche you are working on. So you can ask generic questions like that has to do with methodology, like how can I carry out lab work? What are the steps to carry out lab work on the use of hydraulic flume in the laboratory to measure some hydraulic data? Okay, so how can let's say, what are the steps and procedure in conducting an experiment with a hydraulic flume in the laboratory? So let's say, what are the steps and procedure in conducting an experiment with a hydraulic flume in the laboratory? So this is a question, I asked it, and let's hear what it has to say. So the steps and procedures for conducting an experiment with a hydraulic flume in the laboratory will vary depending on the specific goals of the experiment. Preparation. These are the steps. Preparation. Before conducting the experiment, researchers should prepare the laboratory by ensuring that the hydraulic flume is properly installed and calibrated. Design the experiment. Should design the experiment by determining the variables to be tested, the methods for controlling and measuring these variables, set up the experiment, and conduct the experiment, which is the main one. The researcher should be able to conduct the experiment by running the hydraulic flume with the appropriate flow rates and monitoring the critical parameters and measurements, and then analyze the data, the results. So the researcher should be able to conduct the experiment by running. After the experiment is completed, the researcher should analyze the results by comparing the data collected to the hypotheses and predictions made before the experiments. Report the results. Finally, the researcher should report the results of the experiment by presenting the findings and conclusions in a written report or presentation. So these are some of the steps and basic requirements. You can write and be very specific. Let's say the same question, but then focus on measuring discharge variation. What are the steps and procedure in conducting an experiment with the hydraulic flume in the laboratory for measuring discharge variations over an installed wear? So this is very specific, and we can see. These are the various steps. The first one is still the preparation. Before conducting the experiment, hydraulic flume is properly installed. Design the experiment, the wear and wear width, and the flow rate should be selected to achieve the desired results. Set up the experiments, and then calibrate the flow meter. There should be a flow meter, and installing the wear into the flume also has been captured here. And then you can see calibrate the flow meter. These are the procedures to calibrate the flow meter. Conduct the experiment. Controlling the flow rate through the flume and discharge over the wear at regular intervals. Researchers should be able to process for a range of flow rates to obtain a range of discharge measurements. Analyze the results. So these are the different results that you should pay attention to. Discharge measurements against the flow rates to determine the relationship between the two variables. And the results should be presented in a report. So I think this is very, very specific and it's very direct. So this is one. Another way is we can use this ChatGPT to carry out some basic data analysis. We can do some very basic statistical analysis, and you can go as deep as writing codes, MATLAB codes, or R codes or thereabouts. So let's say we want to do some basic data analysis. For example, calculating some statistical parameters like mean, mode, median, standard deviation. So let's say for this data, calculate the mean of the data 2, 3, 5, 18, 19, 6, and 7. So we hit on enter, and let's go down here for, yes, of course, to calculate the mean of the data set, this one, you need to add up all the values and then divide by the sum of by the number of data points. So we can see the summation and you can see the division. So the mean of the data is 8.57, and that's correct. So you can regenerate this. You can give it another version, but then I want you to calculate the median. In this case, you can see the median of the data. So you can hit on enter, And you can say of this data, or you can just go ahead because it's already aware of this data. You can say calculate the median. Yes, I can calculate the median of the data. So you can see it is generating the median. We have 7 values, and the median of the 7 value is 6, and that's correct because you have to rearrange them in ascending or descending order, like he said. Okay, in ascending or descending order, and then pick the middle number. So you can say, can you calculate the standard deviation? Let's calculate the standard deviation, and it automatically know the data we are talking about, and it's going to go ahead and calculate the standard deviation. First, by telling us what standard deviation is, and then how we can calculate it. Here's the calculation for this set of data, and it has given us these steps. Find the mean. We find the mean, and I'll subtract the mean from each data point to find the deviation, and then this is what it does. We find the deviation, and then square each deviation, and then this is the square, and then find the average of the squared deviations. You can see the average, and we have the answer to be 42.18, and then take square root of the average to find the standard deviation, and then the standard deviation is 6.50. So the answer for this set of data is 6.50. As you can see, it gives us the detailed overview of the steps required to attain or to calculate the standard deviation, and this is very, very correct and fantastic. So we can even go on for that to ask it to calculate the variance, and it will just go ahead and calculate the variance. So to calculate the variance, it tells us what the variance is, and then go ahead for this set of data. You can go ahead and tell us, here is the calculation for the variance of this set of data. You can see find the mean. Yeah, go ahead to find the mean. Subtract the mean from each data point. Take the deviations. You can see the deviation. This is the formula, data point minus mean, and then this is the square each deviation. You can see. You can go ahead and say find the average of the square deviation, just like we have in the other one. So you can see the fourth procedure is so the variance of the data for this set is 42.18. So this is the variance, and it has given us the various steps. So whatever statistical data you want to calculate, you can easily do that with this, and this AI tool can give you the report or the data just like it has shown based on the procedures. You can go ahead and use it on data also. So you can debug codes also. You can debug a code. If you have a computer code, you can write computer codes for you, and it can debug the code in cases if you write the code wrongly. It can detect where you wrote it wrongly, and it will give you the correction. So let's try to write some codes using this to solve some research question. For example, in terms of statistics, can you calculate the weight of 2 cylindrical tanks and tell if they are significantly different in R? Okay, so can you calculate the weight of 2 cylindrical tanks and tell if they are significantly different in R? So I'm asking it to use R and then write the code for me. So let's hear what it will say. To calculate the weight of 2 cylindrical tanks, you need to know the dimensions of each tank. Okay, so let it give us from the generic point of view. Assuming this is the formula for weight, and where R is the radius, determine the weight of the 2 cylindrical tanks can give us the t-test. So you can see usually 0.05 is the p-value, and it's important that you need to have enough data points to perform the t-test. Okay, so let's say we can regenerate this. Okay, so let's say this is generic. Can you assume some data and then go ahead and plot and write the code? Can you assume some of the parameters and write the code in R? So let's see what it has to say. Sure, let's assume the following parameters. Okay, tank 1, the radius 1 and height 2, density 800, and tank 2 with this much data. And then here is the code in R to calculate the weight of each tank. So you can see it has given us define the parameters. This is in R, and then this is R1, H1. I'll have the density for the first tank, and then calculate weight of the tank 1. It has given us the formula to calculate. You can see define the parameters for tank 2. It has given us R2, H2, and then it went ahead to calculate the weight of the tank 2, and then perform a t-test if the weights are significantly different. This is the t-test formula, okay? Open bracket, weight 1 and weight 2. So when you copy this code and take it to R, this is going to give you, run it, it's going to give you the results of weight 1 and weight 2 and their relations as well. So this will give you the t-test value and the p-value, which you can use to determine if the difference between the weights is statistically significant. Okay, so this is Very, very easy. You can just copy on this and go to your R software and then paste it and run. So this is another way to use this ChatGPT for your data analysis. And I think it's very, very nice and it can give you a lot of benefit. So let's say I have written a code and I made a mistake and I want this ChatGPT to help me fish out that mistake. Let's see if it can do that. I have written this and let's try to see if it can run it. Plot X and Z. I know that my parameters are X. I define my X, I define my Y, and then I ask it to plot X and Z. There's no Z in the function, so I just ask it to plot. So let's see whether it will plot or not. You see, now it just told me the plot you provided contains a mistake. In the line plot X, Z, the variable Z is not identified, it's not defined. So to plot Y variable, which is defined, Y is this, we should use plot X and Y instead. Here is the correct code. So you can see it has corrected the code and given me the correct one. So plot X and Y. So this code will generate a plot of the Y variable against the X variable, which represent a parabolic function. So this is the beauty of ChatGPT. It quickly debug and tell me that this function I have written is wrong and this is the correct one and how I can write it, and this is what I should anticipate as part of the results. So ladies and gentlemen, this is my perspective about ChatGPT, how to use it for research and development. It all depends on how you interact with it, what kind of functions or what kind of details are you looking out for. It can help you to do a lot of things. But in my own case, based on my understanding, you can use this wonderful website to rewrite your awkward passages. You can use it to make suggestions. You can use it for scientific communications. You can use it to make different kind of predictions, even recommendations in your articles. And then you can have, it has some cons through research also. For example, throughout its write-up, it doesn't put in the reference indirectly where it picked the information, and it doesn't cite the reference, and it has limitations of having references older than newer than 2020. It doesn't have references newer than 2021 except for web pages. Okay, so no references, and then the content and then there is possibility of interpretation. Okay, so if you carry a given set of data, this ChatGPT cannot give you the direct interpretation. It can give you interpretation, but then it cannot relate the interpretation with previous results, previous researches that have been conducted in this field. So let's say we go back to that same paper that we are working on, and we go to the results, okay, and pick some part of the results, and then try to see, okay. So let's say this is some part of the results, and we see this result. So we can copy this. We can go back to our ChatGPT and say, can you explain this? We can paste it and let's see what it does. So these are some parameters. The statement you provide is talking about the peak discharge in Karoo River. Peak discharge is the maximum flow rate. Okay, you can see it picked it correctly. The statement says for the 5-year period and 1,000-year return period, the peak discharge at the outlet in this river, in this catchment, is this. You can see the detailed analysis it gives. Even the return period, you can see it gives us very fantastic description or elaboration or explanation about this various few sentences that I just put. We can see it has given us in detail of what we need. So, but what I want now is, can you compare this with previous research? Can we compare this with previous research in the area? So let's hear what it has to say. I'm sorry, but I cannot compare this information with previous research in the area without further context or specific information about the previous research. So to accurately compare this information with previous research, it will be necessary to have a clear understanding of what was studied in the previous research and what results were obtained. So this is one of the limitations of ChatGPT. It is not able to carry out direct comparison of risk of this particular results with the previous researcher's result or findings, and then try to make a conclusion out of this. So this is one of its shortcomings, and you should be able to pick up from here and know that yes, we need a human perspective to be able to drive this and make this a success. It's not just the machine alone that can give us that perspective. Okay, so I think this is just a summary of my own perspective on how to use ChatGPT for research and development, and to write your own journal paper, the content, the referencing, I think you can write references for you directly. Based on this paper that we've been interacting, I can ask you to write the references. Can you write references for this research? Let's hit on enter and see what you can do. I'm sorry, but I don't have enough information to provide references for this research. Yeah, that's right. Typically, the references for such paper will include list of sources that researcher consulted to conduct this. Yeah, I agree. It doesn't have much information because we didn't ask it to write quite a lot of information. Okay, so let's say we picked something from this. Yeah, I think it doesn't have much information. Okay, but just for us to understand how it generates references, we can ask it to generate reference based on this lab procedure that we've just talked about, based on the steps and procedures for conducting an experiment in the laboratory. So let's ask it to write reference. So write reference based on this information, the steps, introduction, and procedure in conducting research that we found here. Okay, so you see here are some references that may be relevant for a research project working on the conducting of this. You can see some of the references. You can see it's just writing the references. This is just to show you how the ChatGPT can write references for you. Yeah, and I try to reference what we have talked about, so it's aware of the scope and the topic and the area of discussion, and it's getting us the references around the scope. Okay, so you gave words up to 5. If you want, you can ask it to write more. Okay, these references provide a starting point for conducting research on laboratory experiments with hydraulic fumes and wares. Okay, you can ask it to write more if you want, but I think just for this tutorial, it's just for me to show you how this ChatGPT provides references for your research, and it can help you to write references for your research paper. Right, so ladies and gentlemen, this is just a bit about how to use ChatGPT to conduct some research, enhance your research experience. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Please remember to hit the subscribe and notification buttons to stay connected to this channel for more and more videos like this.